So I'm using the Engineering Design and Graphics with SOLIDWORKS 2023 book. This is pretty much the same thing going back to 2016. Been a few things added. Uh, if you've watched the previous videos, I've mentioned there are quite a few things that I like about this book, and that there are some mistakes in the dimensioning and the missing dimensions and geometry that you have to pay attention to. And as a designer, you are responsible for making this work. So if there is a missing dimension, we're going to put in our best guess and do a something to identify it. But for the most part, we'll be able to go through these projects pretty seamlessly. The first chapter for my first set of exercises, I've done these before. I mean, with 2023, everything changes a little bit, and the 2023 book will go through for my class assignment. I'll go through 5 of these as a starter, and then I'll do 5 out of the second chapter for another assignment. And then I will go back and do the in-betweens. All right, so whichever ones we end up picking here, then I will uh, go through the rest a little bit quicker. All right, so let's see, it was up there and now it's not, so I'm going to go back over to SolidWorks, and well, something happened to my screen here. There we go. So when we first go in and we get the Welcome to SolidWorks screen, if you use the part, you're going to go to that default part template. Right? It doesn't have the origin turned on. It's in the gradient background. The handful of things that we set. It might be in metric, it might be in inch, depending on how it was set. So I want to go to the advanced if I'm going to use that. Most of the time I would just go to new, and at some point I probably will do the do not show thing, and we will I won't see that near as much. All right, so where did you go? You did that before. All right, so when we're looking at these pictures, one of the things to note is we are in inches for this one, so I want to verify that I see an IPS down here, inch, pounds, and seconds. The other clue is that these will be in relatively small numbers and in 2 decimal places. There are some other clues that will come up when we shift over in metric, and there'll be quite a few parts that end up being in metric. So um, if this was 3 millimeters by 5.5 millimeters, converting that to inches, that would be about an eighth inch by about not a little over 3/16 of an inch. So pretty small part based on the sizes. So just a few things that we want to be aware of and make sure of. At some point, you're going to be in inches and you're going to want to be in metric, or you're going to be in metric and you want to be in inches. It's going to happen. I'm not worried about those sizes. If it was something that when we get to the assembly side where it is going to make a difference to being able to put the assembly together, then we're going to have to correct for it. But for now, we're going to probably just leave it and chalk it up to experience so that uh, get it, check the units for next time. All right, on our front plane, I like the right click on the front plane. It shows the preview. My graphics card is lagging just a little bit. So when I right click and go to the new sketch, it's the same as using the new sketch, and now it says exit sketch because we've gotten into the sketch. So if I kick that out real quick, we'll just discard one more time, right click, and it just says sketch, but basically it's making a new sketch. Once there is a sketch existing, then you will be able to edit that sketch in a couple different ways. All right, so my visual clues that I am in the sketch now is we have the rollback bar and a sketch with a minus sign underneath it. We have the red origin. We have a confirmation corner. The triad and the front plane are pretty much there, but we can give those a mention. And whenever we're looking at this origin, whether it's the blue we're not in a sketch or the red we are in a sketch, then the long leg is vertical and the short leg is horizontal. On the status bar, approximate position, and the sketch is currently under defined, we would like that to say fully defined, and then our status is we are editing sketch 2. Well, I opened sketch 1, I closed it for the example, I opened up a new sketch, they just increment, it doesn't really matter. All right, so choosing our tools. We have a rectangle with a hole in it. We're going to do the project just like this is shown. But then because this is parametric modeling, the dimensions and the relations that we did a quick introduction to are going to be able to drive this geometry, and we can make some design choices based on um, the information that we have. So first thing I want is a rectangle 3 by 5.5. So we started off drawing with the lines, and I could go into the line command and draw 4 lines, but we also have a rectangle tool. And because the rectangle tool has a little arrow, we have multiple rectangles. So I don't have to press on that little arrow to get into the corner rectangle because it is currently active. But if I wanted to center a rectangle that was out of position, parallelogram, then I would be selecting one of those. So if I just come up here and click on the rectangle, I'm looking for that first coincident relation. Our primary rule of starting sketches is somehow, some way, we're going to attach to the origin. And it doesn't matter which way you want to go. I'm doing the click and drag. If you did the click click, it would pretty much be doing the same thing. You just wouldn't be holding down the mouse button like I am. So I'm holding down the mouse button so that I can drag this around. If we put it in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, it doesn't really matter. There are reasons and preferences for each. So I'm going to go with quadrant 4. And I do not have the sketch numeric input turned on. We'll deal with that a little bit later. And my two choices for the dimension is to come up to the command manager. We'll do this one first. And I pick the object and place the dimension, enter the value, and hit enter. All right, so overwriting that 3.054, whatever it was, doesn't do anything. It's already highlighted, so all you have to do is start typing to overwrite it. And then let's go back to select. And normally I would just jump right into the next dimension. I would dimension until I had what I needed. The other one that you're going to see me do more often, it's not my save reminder, is have not made anything yet. So my second option then is to go between two objects. Normally I would just pick the object and place the other dimension, but as an example, we're not always going to be able to have that information. So as those highlight in orange and then turn to blue, that they are actually selected. And that color's not terrible, but I think I will go back in and change it to the magenta so it does a little more highlight. Right, so we place the dimension. Notice the blue around the number. So all I have to do is 5.5, and then we'll go back into select. I could also hit escape on the keyboard. So I'm fond of saying there's 5 ways to do everything, and that's more of a Windows philosophy than really anything with this software, but we want to be aware of at least two. So depending on where you're at in the screen and in the work area, you'll be able to perform these functions. So going up to the circle, and we mentioned before we had the circle, the perimeter circle. I don't need to push the arrow except to maybe familiarize with what's underneath. I click on the circle. We're kind of looking to see if there's any inferences. Not really grabbing any. There we go. And say there's one and there's one. So if I utilize those inferences, then it will show me that I'm at the center of the part, but the little boxes, horizontal and vertical, are not yellow. They're in white. So that says that even though you're there, you're not really there. All right, so it's free to move. It can do whatever, and we need to add dimensions. So quick comment on the parameters. You can enter values here, but I don't recommend it. It's kind of a waste of time because if I happen to come over and oops, those values are going to change based on where we drag this part. Remember, if it's in blue, it's underdefined. It can still change size. It can still change location. All right, so my fingers are getting ahead of me. Let's go smart dimension this time. And because this is a circle, it's going to go right into a diameter dimension. If this was an arc, we would go right into a radius. So we know that this is a 1-inch diameter. And then I can turn off the smart dimension by clicking it again. And I want to go to the right mouse button, context, and we're going to pick an object, and then preference is going to be the perimeter, the circumference of the circle. And when I click it, it asks me to place the dimension, and we are at 2.75. All right, and let's see what the difference is I can go to the center point and to the object, and we'll get the 1.5. The main thing that I want with that circumference is, first of all, it's a bigger target. I can pick it way more easily than I can find that center point. Now, the other thing is that when I go to the leaders, there's no min-max condition that I'm going to get with the perimeter. So if I drag all the way down here, we have an arc condition. It's dimension to the center. If I make it a minimum or I make it a maximum. This is very handy if you're reverse engineering a part or referencing a part and you want to go with an actual dimension and then shift it one way or the other. So I could measure from the inside of the hole to the edge with my calipers, know the diameter, put that dimension in as a measured value, and then change it to the center and say, oh, that's a nice fractional or nice whole metric number, and it kind of verifies and double checks your process. All right, so then when I go to the features, I don't have to exit the sketch. I don't have to do anything else. Just go right into the extrude boss base. But we do need to tell it which way we want to go. So if you like the ruler, and if I use this, I would spend way too much time trying to make it perfect. So got lucky for once, 1 inch. More than not, I'm going to come over to the property manager, type in that value, and the only other thing we really need to decide is it coming towards us or is it going away from us. Right now it doesn't really matter, but there's going to be that, again, the magic crystal ball of design intent that says when I put this in the assembly, when I do whatever I'm going to do with this later on, it would be more convenient, it would be better to have it come in to the assembly in the right orientation with a kind of a sense of what I would say, perspective or of where it needs to land. and be done. All right, so we'll finish up with creating our folder. So I want to save, and it went to my documents. So I do want this to go to my, and something is not connected there. So that's interesting. I lost the, oh, the My Drive. It is, huh? All right, then we're going to create a folder in my documents. And we'll go with, well, let's go ahead and make the whole thing then. MPT 150. Oh, I guess my caps lock was on. So MPT 150. We're going to create a new folder for assignment 1. And I just abbreviate that. Really got to get that caps lock turned off. All right, assignment 1. And then in our file name, well, this just does happen to be part 1. Figure P1-1. So, and I'm going to put my initials on the end of it so that I have that that tracking. All right, so we go ahead and save it, and then we can close, and we're ready for the next